There we go. Welcome, everybody, to the Dangerous Faggot Tour. Thank you so much for coming this evening. Is there another packed-out crowd? Yes, we are. I am the aforementioned Milo. Thank you for coming, and thank you for partying with me. You've made a good decision on your Friday night, so I'm here to teach you about something very important. But first, I have to teach a couple of other colleges a few lessons first. Yesterday, I spoke at West Virginia University. What's that? West by God, Virginia. Yes, I did. Which is one of the good things about that college is even their name is triggering. Now, I drew attention to two other schools at West Virginia who were trying to dick my student organizers around. And the way they do this now, as you probably know by now, is massive security fees imposed right at the last minute. So a couple of days before the event is supposed to happen, they will hurl security fees at you, if you invite the wrong speakers. And so various colleges have been trying to do this over the course of my tour, so $2,000, $3,000, up to $6,000 and $8,000 a couple of days before the event, as a way of trying to derail it. One of these colleges, Minnesota State, has backed down and lowered the security fee. Thank goodness. And all it took was a little light roasting on stage from me yesterday, and an angry headline at Breitbart.com. Kellogg's have learned what happens when you go to war with Breitbart.com. It never works out well for anyone. Anyway, so the Minnesota has rolled over, so that's good. But the other big college, Iowa State, is holding out. I'm sorry to tell you. Big mistake, Iowa State. It's a big mistake. Now, not only is Iowa State potentially breaking the law by failing to cover the security costs themselves, but they're also bringing the full force of Milo down on them. And anyone who has carried my body weight will tell you that after a while it gets a bit much. But you know, because I'm a nice, forgiving sort of person, I'm giving these colleges a few days to come to their senses and waive the fee. So my entreaty this evening to Iowa State is please waive the fee and respect the rights and respect the wishes of your own student bodies. It's not hard. Iowa, of course, is not the first college to try this tactic, only to realize they're a horrible mistake and to later come to their senses. These colleges were the smart ones. These are the ones. Somebody's triggered by one of these colleges. No. These are some smart colleges who tried to fuck their students over, but eventually came to their senses and said, okay, fine, you don't have to pay us, as is their legal obligation. They realized they were doing more to damage their reputations by irritating conservatives than they were for their own ridiculous progressive causes by keeping me off campus. They're also getting into a game of chicken with me and Breitbart, which, as I said a moment ago, is never a good move. So Iowa State, still to go. We'll see what happens. Irvine, Alabama, and Minnesota have saved their reputations, particularly Minnesota, which has a very free speech-friendly president. Tellingly, the other two colleges had to suffer a bit more of the Milo treatment before they rolled over. But rolled over they did, and rolled over they always do. If you'd like to let this university know what you think of their attempts to stifle free speech and intellectual diversity on campus, here is the email address of the president. That will be going up on... That will be going up online. I mean, a couple of 100,000 people see these talks online in the end, so good luck using your email for the next 3 months, mate. Look, the left has been doing this for decades. They fucking deserve a bit back. Look, conservatives are also meek and nice and sweet. You know, conservatives don't want to rock the boat. They're all, let's just be nice. Let's not. Look. These guys fucked you over and over and over again for decades with these public-shaming mob tactics. And frankly, it's about time they got a taste of their own medicine. It's about time they realize what happens when your shoe is on the other foot. So, Stephen Leaf, the president of the University of Iowa, sorry about it, instead, I would advise universities to take the route of the University of Chicago, which is announced for 2016-17 that students coming should not expect safe spaces. They should not expect trigger warnings. You come to college to learn, and if you enroll at the University of Chicago, you should not expect any of these crazy far-left social justice wacko things to exist in your courses. They should be hugely commended for that. There is a gulf opening up in American higher education between colleges who want to engage, want to sort of indulge, and in some cases fund the social justice warriors to the expense of all of the rest of us, of everybody else. and colleges who make a brave stand for free speech. Let's see which side of the line Iowa State falls on. Your college has done quite well. It was important for me to come here because you need a big dose of free speech at Iowa University. Not quite as much as the two I just mentioned, but a fairly big dose. I'd like to take you on a brief trip down memory lane, and there might be some people in the room who remember this. Can you believe the Greek community at this school had the audacity to do this? This disgusting symbol of hate speech. Otherwise, this disgusting symbol of racially charged hate speech, otherwise known as the name of the next president, was on your graffiti wall. It was on your graffiti wall. They wrote Trump 2016, and worse, build the wall. They actually gave a shit about immigration policy, and they were conservatives who dared to express their views. Appalling. They should all be expelled. Now, your college president, Roderick McDavis, did what every liberal does, called for diversity and inclusion. Well, it's about time that universities started respecting diversity and inclusion of thought and political idea, rather than just skin color, sexual orientation, and God knows whatever gender they've made up today. This is the only kind of diversity that matters in college. This one. And it has to be absolutely vigorously protected. Now, McDavis said that while the wall was a place for free speech and expression, pro-Trump expressions have a very different meaning to some people. Yeah, the people who lost the election. It means you're a loser. And they knew they were going to lose, and they didn't like that they were going to lose, so they didn't really want the reminder on campus. And this is a typical example of liberal doublethink, and it's something that you should feel very relaxed and comfortable and happy laughing at, because it is deserving of nothing but ridicule. This wasn't a one-time event either. Thankfully, young conservatives are learning not to shut up when they're told to. They are fighting back and winning. And they're winning big. He did it. He did it. Isn't he wonderful? Look at him. You know, I told the New York Times I was Trump-sexual as a joke. And they printed it. In the magazine, they did this Q&A with me, and I was just trolling the fuck out of them. And as Anna Marie Cox, the feminist interviewer, said, do you consider yourself sexually attracted to Donald Trump? I said, oh yes, yes. In fact, I call myself Trump-sexual. And she went, really? Anyway, such idiots. Such idiots. Oh, journalists are such idiots. Anyway, there's a very simple message to liberals and to your own president everywhere, which is that Donald Trump won. Bitches, get over it. Stop pretending. Stop making up fake hate crimes. Stop whining about feeling unsafe. And get over the fact that nobody likes you and you lost the election. And there is nothing racist or sexist or transphobic or homophobic about being a Republican. I sort of never want to take it off. I want this for my bus. I think I might just print it and just post it over the bus. I'll share a perspective with you that you don't often hear about, and that is the point of view of your alumni. Now, they don't get much of a voice on campus. They don't really get to choose where their money goes, and you don't see them very often. But they are the people who make most of this stuff possible, all these buildings and everything. And they're pretty horrified by what's going on in student unions and student government, in your faculties, and in the classrooms. And when they hear about it, they get very upset. And one of the ways that you can help to resist what is happening on American college campuses is to make sure that you remind your alumni of just where their money is going. So one of my close colleagues at Breitbart went here 20 years ago. And when he found out that this wall stuff was going on, he was absolutely horrified. And those colleges that do punish people just for having the wrong political opinion deserve to share the fate of Missouri, which we'll talk about in a second. It gives me a sort of sick thrill to watch alumni faces crumble when I run into them at one of those fancy Republican conferences or whatever. I say, oh, you go there, okay, fine. And then I tell them about the things that I experienced on that campus, and I tell them about the stories, and you just sort of watch. They all think that it's like that sort of it'll never happen to me, you know. College crazes are something that happen at other universities, you know. It wouldn't happen at Ohio. No. When you tell them, they get horrified. And what happens is the same thing that happened to Missouri, which had 30-40 million budget shortfall, had to close 4 dorms. Some of the what were the names of the dorms they had to close? Respect and Excellence. So what happens when you pander to race baiters and social justice warriors? Those are the things you lose. Imagine, if you can, poor liberal students sobbing to the police over the message, trigger warning, there are no safe spaces in real life. You can't wall off the First Amendment. Just about the only thing. Just about the only thing Trump can't build a wall around is the First Amendment. And it's amazing, isn't it? Liberals, they hate the police right up until somebody hurts their feelings. Blue lives do matter. Thank you very much this evening. Well, hopefully Ohio will see the light on this diversity of political opinions before it too feels the financial pinch, but no promises because these university types are not very bright. I'm glad that we've mentioned... This is one of the things, you know, liberals expect you to believe all sorts of things that aren't true. And one of the things that they expect you to believe that isn't true, possibly the most ridiculous one, is that anyone has ever wanted to fuck her. Vanity Fair, are you kidding me? Molting, what's this? Dropping things from my tool belt. I ran out of spanners. That's all I had to add. All right. Glad we mentioned safe spaces, where they will be in use tonight. With the election of Donald Trump, we must press forward with free speech on college campuses. It really does matter. Daddy can fix a lot of things, just like he fixed carrier in Indiana. But you, 1,000 jobs going nowhere. But you students have to fight your own culture war. Tonight we're going to do what feminists are not willing or able to do. We are going to explore and properly define the patriarchy, which some of you are a member of. I'm going to let you know whether that's a good or a bad thing. See, feminists don't like to just to define anything really precisely because it doesn't give them any wiggle room to whinge. Feminism is a sort of elaborate blame-pushing device, you know? And it's a problem because when you tell a woman that everything that's wrong in her life is the fault of some man somewhere, and it's easy to do, you're robbing her of the agency, you're robbing her of the ability to improve her life. If you tell a girl that she failed an exam because the marking criteria is sexist, when it isn't, you're robbing her of the ability to study harder and to achieve in life. And this sort of elaborate searching for someone else to blame is exactly what progressives have done after this election. Looking for people to blame, getting progressively more furious. Why on earth didn't we win? We can't understand. It can't be us. It must be racist, sexist, misogynist, anti-Semitic monsters. It must be you, you, and you. Black Lives Matter does the same thing, looking for other people to blame. Now, feminism is the best example of this because it's sort of, it's the most audacious in a way. It has decided through the invention of this conspiracy theory that it calls the patriarchy that half the species is the reason that their lives are shit. In many cases, their lives are simply shit because they didn't work hard enough, or they don't have the talents or skills or aspirations that somebody that they admire does. But giving them a sort of ready-made excuse for their own failings is sort of what the patriarchy is for. And as a result, they don't want to define it very clearly. So if they get too many catcalls in the street, they put it down to patriarchy, something they don't like. If they get too few catcalls, they also put it down to patriarchy, and some brave, enterprising feminists do both. Jessica Valenti, never knowingly consistent. Jessica Valenti, year 1. The end of hisses, whistles, and stares. We need to walk the streets without fear. 1 year later, men rarely catcall me anymore. I hate that our culture makes me miss it. Not only rolling back on her previous position and complaining about the fact that she thinks she's old and unattractive anymore, and nobody else probably gives her a second look, but then blaming men for it again, saying it's the culture that makes me miss catcalling. Is the air conditioning on too high? That's the patriarchy. Too cold in the office. It's the patriarchy. Yeah, this was a Telegraph journalist in the UK who said that women in the office, in her experience, had to wear a lot more clothes because men like it colder. And of course, it's always a man that sets the temperature. So thus was born the air conditioning is sexist trope in modern feminism. Emojis you don't like. The eggplant emoji. Here's an example of feminism done right from Vocative. The eggplant emoji is the next front line of online harassment. Again, the evils of the patriarchy at work. This gives you some idea, the reason I'm showing you is it gives you some idea of the sort of nebulous entity that we are expected to believe controls the fate of every rich white woman in the Western world. Probably the most privileged group ever to exist in the history of human civilization, by the way. We're expected to believe all manner of ridiculous things. Let's be honest, the garbage that flows out of feminists' mouths doesn't need much help to be funny. These 400-pound, blue-haired, facially pierced gorillas with more piercings than chins, screeching about the injustices visited on her because she wants more donations to her fucking Patreon. This is the face of modern feminism. And this is the face of feminism that bizarrely, somehow, has managed to convince politicians, academics, journalists, movie makers, novelists, in fact, all of the civil society institutions in the country, all of the creative classes, that there is this vast conspiracy against women perpetrated by men. Well, if there is, it's not doing a very good job for men, and we'll experience that. We'll explore that in just a second. The jokes on this stuff, of course, write themselves. It is a truth universally acknowledged that no two feminists have the same definition of patriarchy. It seems to just mean anything. Of course, no feminists have ever agreed on anything. There's a reason that a movement that is populated almost entirely by women has never been able to define itself. No one's ever been able to give a definition of feminism that lasts more than 11 seconds. It's got sort of it's like the half-life of a radioactive atom. You know, you finally grasp a definition of feminism that they find acceptable, and it vanishes again. This is a persistent problem with the movement. There are a few actual reasons why they might do this on purpose. Firstly, feminists, like most academic charlatans, like to use a lot of big long words like intersectional and systemic to make themselves seem clever without actually doing any real science. They think this hides the fact they aren't actually saying anything, which works on grant applications, but apparently not with the general public, with the result that just 7% of British women describe themselves as feminist, and fewer than 1 in 5 American women describe themselves as feminist. You lost the war, girls. Give it up. According to the it's true. According to the Huffington Post poll from 2013, just 23% of women, and there's a little, that one came in slightly higher, but about the same. 23% of women were willing to call themselves feminists, compared to 82% of women who said that they believed in the equality of the sexes. In other words, 1 in 5 women calls themselves feminist, but only 1 in 5 women doesn't believe in the. I don't know what these. 1 in 5 women believes that men and women aren't equal. Could all the women in the room stand up? Maybe there are 2 or something. I don't know. No. Okay. So how many are we? We've got 5, 10, 15, 20, 25. Got some feminists. Yeah, 30. So I can tell from the ones who haven't washed their hair in a while. So out of the ladies who are standing, and thank you for indulging me, according to all of the surveys, and they all come back the same, no matter where you do it, about perhaps 10 of you, possibly 15, don't believe that men and women are equal. So, sort yourselves out before you start whinging at men. Sit down. Thank you so much. That's what women tell pollsters. Sorry, it was a bit mean of me to do that. The crisis for feminism is this. Although nobody's prepared to call themselves a feminist, almost all women agree that in the equality of the sexes. Well, that means that they know that these aren't the same thing. Otherwise, you get the same results. They know that feminists say one thing. They say that feminism is about equality of the sexes, equal pay, and all the rest of it, but they act very differently. When put under pressure, when really held when you put their feet to the fire, when they're on the defensive, they'll say, oh, feminism is just about equality. Don't you believe in equality? Well, most men do, although 1 in 5 of you don't. Not my numbers. But they act very differently. And feminism has become a sort of mean, vindictive, spiteful, lesbianic, man-hating car crash. which it has become cancer. It has become cancer. Most women agree with us. Most women refuse to describe themselves like it because they don't hate men. They quite like a boyfriend, or even, dare I say it, a husband one day. They might even, shock horror, cover your ears, feminists in the room, want children one day. They're not all dykes, I'm sorry. And so feminism is having a bit of a bad time, and like a sort of dog that's been kicked so much it's about to die, it's in the corner, looking sorry for itself, lashing out with its final ragged breaths. And this is the situation that feminism finds itself in. But of course, you know, animals that are about to die are often at their most dangerous because they've got nothing left to lose. And the odious lesbians in gender studies departments, and you have some here and we'll see them in a minute, the odious people in gender studies departments are some of the most poisonous and toxic people in all of academia, spreading lies about men that simply do not conform to the facts. There is no gender pay gap. It is a myth. It doesn't happen. There is no campus rape culture on American on American college campuses. It isn't true. It isn't true. These things are phantasms. They are imaginings. They are conspiracy theories. And they have the gall to suggest that right-wingers are more prone to conspiracy theories when they believe in things like the wage gap and campus rape culture. Give me a fucking break. Now, of course, the reason why a few women still turn to feminism isn't hard to understand. Now, have a look at your own university's gender studies professors. No, stop it. Don't be mean. Don't be mean. Don't be mean. Can anybody suggest why these women might have grown into bitter, middle-aged man-haters? No, stop it. No, stop it. I'm sure they're perfectly nice people. The other reason feminists can't agree on a definition of the patriarchy is obvious. Feminism, like any female-dominated group, is a perpetual catfight. Feminists are always in competition with one another to be, you know, the queen feminist, because they want the most attention, the most donations, all this kind of stuff. It's an industry. It's an industry, and like any industry, you know, it's a sort of, I mean, it's weird. For people who hate capitalism so much, they're quite red in tooth and claw, some of these feminists that are backstabbing and climbing over each other for the title of queen victim. You can see it happen on Twitter. You know, all you got to do is tune into some Guardian journalists to see people who really use grievance as currency. It's great. I mean, you know, since they can't earn any money because they're not good at anything, they instead have to turn to victimhood, grievance, and whinging. That becomes their new currency. That becomes how they negotiate the world, what they use to trade. It's like, oh, well, you know, as a disabled black lesbian feminist, I really feel... I wish you wouldn't. This is the currency they use because they're useless at everything and can't actually make money in the real world.